Welcome back to Dollar Bin Digs, where we dig through the dollar bins of Discogs and our local record stores and find the best drum and bass that we can. Because music is not disposable, and these records are costing as much as they would cost in digital, which is amazing. Okay, so let's get started. First off, we have ASC, the Visible Lights EP on Vibe Records. Big fan of Vibe. They are from the Netherlands and have constantly released up-and-coming artists. They've had releases from people who've become really big in drum and bass. And I love that. And they've been really consistent. They have a fairly consistent sound. It's kind of a liquidy, experimental sound. So they're one of those labels I kind of like to grab just because I think they do interesting stuff. But on top of that, I'm a huge fan of ASC. I've been a fan of ASC ever since Wind Chimes on In Perspective Records. It's one of my all-time favorite drum and bass records ever. And ASC has been consistently releasing amazing stuff, from the stuff on Exit, stuff on his own label, which I'm having a brain fart and can't remember. He did drum funk. He's done atmospheric. He's done minimal. He had a dubstep name for a while. He's a producer I really respect, because I think he's trying to do music the way I want to listen to music. So that being said, I don't think this is the strongest EP, and I think it's why it's in the dollar bin. You won't find a ton of stuff by ASC in the dollar bin. He definitely, I mean, I wouldn't consider him a trendsetter, but he definitely likes to experiment. And to me, this EP, for the most part, is trying to sound like John B. And doesn't do it as successfully as John B. He's trying to use 80s. It's using a lot of dry 80s samples and dry 80s drum breaks. Unfortunately, to me, they're both really forgettable, and they don't have. I mean, the thing about John B's tunes is they're cheeky. They're a joke. They're a joke in a way that isn't a joke. I might pass on this one myself in the future, but it does have a really good D side, which is Pacific Breeze. This is the one tune that isn't sounding like 80s John B stuff, and it sounds more like good-looking stuff, atmospheric, maybe with some of those same samples. Some of this 80s drum machine samples. But it does have a nice flow. It's a very chill tune. I do like that tune. So if you're in the lookout for cheap, good-looking sounding stuff, because some of that stuff can still be extremely pricey even to this day, this might be worth picking up if you're trying to do some mixes like that. Other than that, I'll still pick up anything that Vibes puts out, or ASC. Next up, we've got Krust and Clipz. So I would love to get a complete catalog of Full Cycle. I don't like a good chunk of tunes on Full Cycle, but Krust, Ronnie Size, Die, as represents as Full Cycle, them we're all working on new forms, is some of the best drum bass I've ever heard. So I'm a bit of a loyalist in that way. Like, I want to hear the stuff that they're doing, so I would like to completely get this, even though most of the Clipz songs I don't like. In fact, I was walking in expecting to hate this record. I thought it was going to be one of those dollar records that I was going to be like, all right, this is going to go on my shelf as part of a collection thing, and I'm never going to play it out. But Channel Rock is actually a pretty great tune. It's got super duper heavy bass, and it's got a nice dub vibe to it throughout the whole tune. It moves throughout the whole tune. In fact, there's one part where I was like, this doesn't sound like Clipz. There's no mid bass. It's all like pure sub bass, and he gets one like cheeky melody in the middle. to the point where it's like almost laughing at itself. I I totally dug it. I would play this tune out in a heartbeat. It's one of the best things I think I've ever heard from Clipz. 100% would buy it. Now the B side to me was like, a stereotypical B side. It's a little thin, little underdone. I which I find with a lot of jump up. It's definitely a jump up tune in its Krust and Clipz. I have found for the longest time in my head, I was like, oh, Krust is like the underground secret guy of Full Cycle. But I'm starting to really find that Dai's tunes are the ones that I kind of, as a general whole, I kind of gravitate towards Dai tunes. I actually think this is well worth $2, which is what I paid for it. I'd pay $2 for it again if this one broke or something. Pick this one up. Next up, we've got some Total Science on Timeless Records. Timeless Records is kind of one of those legendary records. They have a ton of huge tunes on it, a huge back catalog, but a lot of it gets overlooked. A lot of it's in the dollar bins, kind of like Moving Shadow. Even some of the really good stuff's in the dollar bins. And this actually proves it. Now, Total Science went through this phase where they went from hardware production to software production. They were using Logic on the Mac, and Baron, who they had signed to the label, was a big part of that. And Baron, well, he has some tunes I really like. He was more of a jump up guy, and I think he really trained Total Science to do jump up. So there's a whole period of Total Science that I kind of avoid. So I was a little like, I don't know if this one is going to be one that I like or not. And I totally think this is pre-Logic, still hardware. It sounds old, but not dated. Or it sounds dated but not old. I'm not sure which way. I think you could totally play this out today. It sounds a lot like some of the stuff that of people that are kind of doing some old school stuff. It's got crunchy beats. It's got a lot of Hoovers. The A side of this is something like I absolutely love. I'm totally gonna put this on a one of the upcoming series of Dollar Bin Beats mixes that this is a must buy for $2. Run out, buy it. It's totally worth it. Not on Spotify. Go grab it. Next up, we got Fellowship and Carlito and DJ Addiction on Defunked. Defunked is another label I buy on site if I don't have it. I am kind of getting close to grabbing them all, so I kind of buy on site. Unfortunately, this one's got a little ding in it, but that happens. I am more of a collector than a DJ these days, at least a DJ that gets paid to do it. So Defunked, I buy on site if I haven't seen it because I want to get the whole series. But Carlito and Addiction are two completely unsung heroes in liquid funk drum and bass. In fact, the Defunked label is that the people that kind of I see people every once in a while call them out on Twitter, and they're always talking about how they're underrated, which I completely agree. They did really jazzy stuff that is the early proto of liquid. It sounds like it's jazzy, it's funky, it's sample heavy. This is stuff that was kind of pre what they were calling liquid, and it's amazing. I love it. It's once again, it's buy on site. It's well worth the $2 that you're paying for it. I would still play this out. The B side by Fellowship, another guy who he started the Defunked label, who released a ton of stuff by Carlito Addiction and DJ Addiction. Once again, an innovator in the liquid sound. I think that they should be heralded more than they are. This one's got good breaks with a nice 808 bass that's laid back and chill. I'm feeling it. I like both A and the B side. Go buy this. Last up, we've got Sonic on Space Records, which is his label. I have been always a fan of Sonic. I liked it better. So Sonic and Silver have released some amazing records. They had a label together, which we've talked about previously. He was part of Accidental Heroes, which was Sonic and Silver. They just changed their name. And Space Records. There's a couple records I absolutely love on Space Records, and I think they're kind of slept on. And I think just about everything on Space Records is in the dollar bin category. So it's another one of those things as a collector, I'd like to pick them all up. But I'm a big fan of Sonic in general. I think he produces really good stuff. That being said, this is probably one of my least favorite records on Space Records. The A side is the bass is super muddy. I don't know if it's a sign of the times, or just had a poor mix down, or it just has a poor pressing, which happens sometimes. So I would avoid the A, but the B, it has a nice upbeat feel. It's got this, ratchety break that keeps you kind of interested. So if you can get this one real cheap, I'd probably pick it up. If you're a big fan of Sonic, I'd probably pick it up. But if you've never heard of Space Records and you don't have a big thing for Sonic, then just pass on this one. Anyways, that's it for tonight. If you like what you see in here, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again.